Hey everyone, today we're taking a look at the Savage Crucible Imperial Sentry from Harbinger Studios. I'm excited to take a look at this figure, not only because it's a new action figure line, but also because Harbinger Studios sent me this figure to review. And this is the first time a company has sent me a figure to review, so that's super exciting. I reached out to them just by emailing them and said, I review figures, and I saw they were sending them to some people for reviews. Gave them a link to my channel, asked if they wanted me to do a review, and so they sent this over. That being said, I'm going to do my best to be as objective as possible and provide constructive criticism or feedback if need be. I did back the Kickstarter, but at the time I just selected one of the fish guys from one of the later waves and Jaeger, the werewolf guy, from the second wave. So I'm glad they sent me one of these lizardmen. Here's a look at the package. It has this really cool design on the front. I like this a lot. Then it has a flap on the front. It's kind of like a NECA style package. You get some info about the Imperial Sentry here, and you can pause it now if you want to read that. So that's a fun little bit of lore. Looks like it's on like a scroll. A good look at the figure through the window, and a little map behind him. You can see some of the accessories in the plastic, and some of them are in a separate area in the back there. They might be in a little baggie. On the side it says Savage Crucible. On the top, the name of the figure, in this case the Imperial Sentry. Same on the side, along with a little wax seal. And then some lore on the back. So go ahead and pause it now if you want to read that. On the bottom, Harbinger Studios. So overall, I think it's a nice package. I like the NECA style packaging. I don't normally keep the packaging in general though, so here he is out of the box. I think he looks pretty cool overall. I like the overall sculpt of it. It has a nice V taper. It's a lot wider at the chest and pinched at the waist, so that looks nice. It gives it an imposing look. I like the different finishes we've got going on here. The shiny metal for the armor, and then it's kind of a satin for the reddish brown parts, and then more matte for any of these mustard yellow parts. The Imperial Sentry specifically I looked up, and this one was actually their Kickstarter and con exclusive figure. So the retail version of this sculpt and armor and accessories will be the Royal Guard, which also looks pretty cool. It's black and has white stripes, and the armor looks like it's darker with gold accents. So this one, if you back the Kickstarter, you could have got there. They should also have limited amounts at conventions that they'll be attending. I think you can find out about that on their website, and it also said they might make it available through contests on social media whenever they do those. So it's cool that they sent this one out. Taking a closer look at these details, the eyes are nicely painted. Here he's got the red eyes with the black pupil, and then there's a bit of yellow around that. It makes it pop a little bit more. The sculpt on the face is nice. I like all the scales. Mine does have just a touch of red paint on the lip here, which might be some paint bleeding over from the inside of the mouth. The mouth does hinge open. It's painted nicely in there. I think maybe just a little bit of the red got on the lip. It's not super noticeable, and I guess even if it is, it could be played off as just a little bit of blood, but something to note there. The nostrils, we've got the mustard color paint in one of the nostrils, while the other nostril is black. So just a slight QC imperfection there. Other side of the face also looks pretty good. No issues with either of the eyes. On the top of the head, we've got some black stripes. And on the bottom of the head, you can see a little bit of the mouth peeking through at the back here. That's just so that when the mouth is open, there you can see mouth all the way to the back. And that isn't super noticeable either. You really have to be looking for it to see that, so I don't think that's a huge deal. Coming down to the chest, I like the sculpt of this armor. I think this looks cool. There's a bunch of rivets on there, and then there's these two serpents coming down. It's a nice silver, and I love the pink accents. Big fan of that. Some angular shapes up here coming over the shoulder. That's cool. And then on the shoulder pads, got two more serpents and a couple little horn shapes coming to the back. A bunch more rivets. I think that's also a little serpent under there. Oh no, that's just the tail of the serpent from the front coming around the back. These little weapon holders, these look nice. They have some paint on them for the strap. Those look good. And then also under the armor, we can see that the chest is painted. And you should be able to remove the armor from these figures, and they wanted them to have some like pop and swap capabilities. So there's the shoulder pads, at least. These are just like plugged in the back here. There are also two peg holes holding in these little holsters here. think those go through the armor and into the back of the figure. Not 100%. Yep. So that hole goes straight through the back of the armor into the back of the figure. So you've got 2 peg holes at the top here, and then a peg hole on either shoulder to add some accessories. And those popped out decently easily. I'd probably heat them up if I was going to do it again. Then you can get a bit of an asymmetric look going. That's pretty cool. We'll leave one shoulder pad off so we can compare in the articulation if it affects anything. Coming down to the gauntlets, these look nice. Follows the same design as the shoulders with those spikies and more pink accents. Really enjoying the pink accents. Now we can see on the arm, this is painted and looks nice. There's some stripes that continue down the side of the arm. There's a couple spots where it's a little unclear, like if this paint, this yellow paint here is intentional or just some extra splotches. I think with it being a lizard though, it's not super noticeable. For me personally, I don't necessarily need that to be like immaculate and perfect in every spot. Lizards are gonna have some variation in their skin, but that's something to note if that would be something that bothers you. There might be just little slight variations with the QC. At the tum, this is also painted nicely. A bit of an asymmetric design, it seems, with the spots. The belt is also great. The armor continues to be my favorite part of the figure. I just really like the silver and pink. Got some nice brown straps going along here, and then some lighter silver for these little rings, it looks like, on the side. More weapon holsters. Those are the same as the ones in the back. Those look nice. Some more designs coming down the hip armor. This hip armor is nice and flexible, so it's not going to get in the way. Same with the front. So that's a good thing. Here at the back, some more spikies, a couple more serpents, little tails down here. It all looks really nice. While we're back here, he's got a tail. The top of the tail looks to be unpainted. The bottom of the tail has some yellow paint on it. We'll talk more about the tail in the articulation. And more paint on the hips on the inside here. That's painted nicely. On the outside, we've got 3 stripes. Some more little splotches. The shin armor looks good. Spiky. It's got the little rivets. I like the way it flows up and around the calf there. And still gives a defined look to the calf. That looks nice. Then down at the toes, some black paint for the toenails. Also the joints, they're kind of similar to NECA joints, like a Predator where they have like the little bean shape, but they are sculpted due to that. And the hinges themselves aren't super apparent. You can they get tucked up in the other parts due to that. You can see that here as well in the elbow. So since they did it this way, they can put the paint on the inside of the elbow and not have to worry about a big hinge breaking that up. It's not necessarily my favorite type of joint, since in my experience other types tend to get a little bit more range. I do think this looks really nice though, so I think that's the trade-off there. Also, I believe the way this works is that there's a peg going up into the bicep and then a peg going down into the gauntlet, so that would probably help with the pop and swap capabilities there, which may also be a reason they went with that. Here's what he looks like with the armor removed. A nice sculpt even without the armor. It's got a nice V-taper, broad shoulders, and the back looks nice as well. You do see the 4 peg holes, but those are necessary to get the accessories on there. So yeah, I think even if you were to get one without the armor, it would still look pretty cool. To get this chest armor off, the straps on the side here are technically actual straps, which is neat. So these have like a little peg on the back, also on the front, but I went with the back just in case I messed it up in any way. I just heated this up and then poked out the little peg to get that off of there, and then slipped it over the head. So pretty easy to swap out the armor. And then for the waist armor, I just popped him apart at the waist. He's got big ball pegs, you can just pull him apart. So overall it looks nice. No real complaints or issues there. On to articulation. At the head, there is a double ball peg. So with that, he can look up a pretty good amount. Down, not quite as much. I would have liked him to be able to touch his chin to his chest a little bit more, but I think that's alright. And then a little bit of side to side tilt. And you can rotate it around however you'd like. I do enjoy double ball peg. It's generally my preferred neck articulation. Then there's a hinge at the mouth. You can hinge that open pretty far. So that's cool. I like that. At the shoulders, with the shoulder pad. The shoulder pad is on a little peg so you can rotate it out of the way. So it can go up that much. Without the shoulder pad, it's about the same. So the shoulder pads don't really get in the way at all. So that's good. Get your full rotation there. Shoulder pad doesn't get in the way of rotating because it's pegged into the shoulder, which is nice. There's a butterfly joint. That actually works really well. Let's see at the back here. That comes out. There's a little stopper there to stop it from coming out all the way. So with that you can get the arm coming across that much. But if you go past the little stopper, you can get even more range. If you do that, it does cause a gap in the back here, and then you kind of have to push it in to tuck it back in there. But that's a way to squeak out a little bit more range there. There's a bicep swivel, and you can swivel that independently from the rest of the arm. Then a swivel at the elbow, and a swivel at the gauntlet. A double jointed elbow, and like I was saying, it has that NECA kind of bean shaped elbow. So most of the range seems to come from the top joint. Get about that much, and then there's technically another joint in the gauntlet area there, but it doesn't get a ton of range. just a little bit. So overall you get about 90 degrees. I wonder if the figures without the gauntlet, if they get a little bit more range or not, like if the joint just doesn't have much room to move with the gauntlet there. So that's one area I would prefer just a little bit more range. But with the swivels and the butterfly joint, he is able to hold the sword with two hands pretty well, so it doesn't limit it a ton. That is something to note. And then at the wrists, you get the swivel, and then horizontal hinge on the open hand, and the vertical hinge on the gripping hand. At the torso, there's a ball peg at the diaphragm, and then a ball peg at the waist. So just at the top here, we can get him leaning back that much. It does create a gap, but I would rather there be a gap than no range. And then leaning forward quite a bit, just on that top joint. And then there's side to side tilt on that, good range there, and rotation. And then with the waist, you can get him leaning back pretty far. And forward also pretty far. Rotation there as well, although since it's more of an oval, it will bump into the belt a little bit. But you can get as much rotation as you need with both the joints. It's not really limited at all there. And then more side to side tilt, tilt him way to the side. So I really like this torso articulation. This is really nice. Coming down to the hips. Hips go out almost to full splits. But I think that's pretty good, especially for a guy in armor. Thigh swivel, double jointed knee, again with the little bead situation. These have like the little detents in them, so it's like a little ratchety, which should help him not falling over anything. And we get about that much range there, so not bad. And it looks like that's just where the armor starts hitting the back of the leg here. Rotation at the knee, and then rotation at the boot. Noticing now mine has a little speck of silvery paint on the knee, maybe just some paint rub there. Then coming down to the feet go back that much before they bump into the armor. And then go forward this much before bumping into the armor. And there is a nice ankle rocker and a toe hinge. Toe hinge is just a little bit loose. It's not bad. It definitely had worse toe hinges. And I think it's sculpted decently, like the rotation point on it doesn't break up the sculpt a ton. It seems like the natural spot the toes would flex. So that's pretty good. Then at the tail, there is a swivel where it pegs in, then a hinge, and then at each of these sections here, here, and here, there's a ball peg, so you can get some more mobility out of that. So I like that overall. So the articulation overall, pretty good. I like it overall. The only one negative I have is the range of the elbows. Like I said, when I was posing it, it didn't really get in the way of trying to get him to hold the swords or anything. I think I'm going to have to heat this back up to get back in the peg hole. Here we go. Overall, I'm pleasantly surprised though. For a big lizard boy in armor, I wasn't expecting that much torso articulation, so I like that a lot. On to accessories. So these gripping hands come on him in the package, and then you also get some splayed open hands, which you can use for clawing or general gesturing. These will have the horizontal hinge to the open hands, while the gripping hands have a vertical hinge, which I definitely enjoy. Maybe some fist hands would have been nice to have. These can kind of act as fist hands and will work at certain angles, kind of fudge it a little bit into being a fist, but fist hands may have been nice. I'll probably have him holding the weapons most of the time anyway though, so I think it's alright. Speaking of weapons, it comes with 4 swords, 2 of these curved swords. These have some brown like leather wrap details on the handles there. Painted a nice silver, and they have a bit of weathering on them, and then some darker silver down here at the handle. So that looks nice. And then also 2 of these translucent yellow and red swords. So these look pretty cool. There is a comic. I haven't read the comic, so I don't know if there's a specific reason they're translucent, and maybe they're like an energy effect or something. I'm not sure, but I think they look neat. They remind me a little bit of like trolley gummy worms, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. Some light brown paint here at the handle, and then some gunmetal silver. That looks very nice. These are both done cleanly as well, so I'm happy with those. And those will fit in these little weapon holders on the figure. These are open on one side. You can just slip the swords in that way, and then since these have the larger hook tip, just go on like that. I think the shape of these big translucent swords is cool with the big hook end. Finally, for accessories, this is behind the map, so be sure to look for that. If you don't want to see what's in it, I guess skip ahead a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and open it. We'll see what I got. Some cool artwork there. And then on the back, looks like we got the clutch protector. And this looks like a D&D stat block. That's pretty cool. You could use this for your D&D campaigns. We'll zoom in here so you can see the stats on this guy. And here are the abilities he has. So that's pretty cool. I like the artwork, and it's neat that you can use it for D&D. I feel like these will be something that fans of the figures will want to trade to try to get them all. So that's cool. So that's going to do it for the accessories. It's a pretty good amount. I like that he has 4 swords. I did see that they have accessory packs you can also purchase. That'll have like alternate heads and different weapons. Get him loaded up here while we're talking. Personally, I tend to prefer just paying a little bit more and having all the accessories packed in with a figure rather than buying an accessory pack later on. For example, that's something Sparrow Toys did with the Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. With their first Kickstarter, they had accessory packs, but then with the second Kickstarter, they ended up just including the extra heads with the figures instead. It's going to come down to personal preference. For me, I kind of want all the accessories with the figure. I think the main downside, in my opinion, for the accessory packs is that they tend to include accessories for multiple figures. So if it comes with alternate heads, it's going to be alternate heads for a few figures. And if you didn't get all the figures, then you just have some extra heads that have paint schemes that don't match your figures. So they kind of can't get used to the full extent. But if you're already getting all the figures, then it's a great way just to get some bonus stuff for all of them. So that'll just be personal preference. For size and comparisons, this figure is standing at just under 7 inches tall. Here he is next to the Animal Warriors of the Kingdom Lexion and an Alpha Predator from NECA. Last year, I thought the Animal Warriors of the Kingdoms figures were some of the best new indie figures to come out. So far, just judging from this one Savage Crucible figure, they might be one of the best indie lines to come out this year. So, and then for this NECA Predator, I wanted to bring this one out because this Savage Crucible figure most reminds me of a NECA figure. So rather than like a disc hinge you see here, it has this NECA style bean shape hinge where there's like a slight curve in it already, and then there's a hinge on either side. So that's what it most reminds me of. There's how the NECA one functions, for example. And then, like I was saying, some of the benefit there is that you can continue the sculpt throughout the inner elbow, and then I don't know all the intricacies and details, but I believe different plastic has to be used for the hinge itself, so then paint doesn't stick to it quite as well, or the paint can chip off as a paint rub. So in this NECA one, you can see the hinges are bigger, but it doesn't have that same texture on the hinge. So there you can see texture here, and then the texture stops on the hinge, and there's not quite the same finish on it. Not super noticeable once you get him back there. But so then with Savage Crucible, I'm assuming they went with this, where the hinge for the most part is hidden. If you bow it back, you can see the hinge a little bit. That way they can continue the paint all the way down, but that may be why it's just a teeny bit limited there. I don't have many Mythic Legions figures, and I feel like Mythic Legions collectors may be the target demographic here. Here he is with a Mythic Legion Swig and the Figura Obscura Mask of the Red Death, so hopefully that gives you an idea of how he'll fit with the Mythic Legions. Here he is with the Mezco Union Gomez and the V-Toys Asura, so he fits in pretty well with both of these. Here he is with the Masterverse Beastman and Noda Toys Wukong. And I think this Imperial Sentry is detailed enough that he can fit in with the Wukong, which is good because that's one of my favorite figures. And finally, here he is with a Marvel Legends Nightcrawler and an SH Figuarts Sugarugeto from Jujutsu Kaisen. So overall, I'm enjoying this figure. I didn't come into it with a lot of expectations one way or the other, but I'm definitely pleasantly surprised with how good the articulation is here, and it's covered in sculpt and details, which is great. It's nice to look at, feels pretty nice in hand. Not really a lot of negatives here either. I mean, if my one negative is that the elbows are a bit limited, but even then, you can still get him into some two-handed sword holding poses, then it's not too bad. And I don't think a lot of people are going to have a ton of issues with that, especially with this also appealing to the Mythic Legions collectors. This is going to have a lot more articulation than the Mythic Legions I've handled. And then the only other negative thing I'd mentioned was just accessory packs versus including accessories in with the figure. It's not necessarily a negative. I mean, I love the Animal Warriors of the Kingdoms figures, and they did that as well with their first go. So that's really just going to be up to you if that bothers you or not. I mean, it does keep the price of the figures down a bit more. It makes it more accessible for more people to buy. So that's one good thing about it. So if you like fantasy characters, if you like Lizardmen, if you just want a cool new indie figure line, I think this is a pretty good one. I would say I recommend this one. And I'm trying not to be biased just because they sent me the figure to review, so, but, you know, maybe take it with a grain of salt. Currently, these figures are still up for pre-order on their website, and the figures with the armor are $40. I think that's pretty reasonable for what you get here. That's within the range of NECA prices. The price is supposed to increase after the pre-order period, though. So on Sunday, May 12th, pre-sale window closes. So then figures that are in stock will have a slightly higher price. I'm not sure what that slightly higher price will be. This was just in the email with the Kickstarter update that I'm reading. Yeah, I'm not really sure how much they'll end up being with the in-stock prices. If it looks appealing to you, maybe go ahead and pre-order just so you get the slightly lower price. If you want this figure specifically, this version of it, you'll have to try to find them at a convention, I think. But anyway, I hope that helps if you're trying to decide if you want to get one of these during the pre-order window. I'm always excited for new indie lines, just because it is fun to see what new things people are doing with action figures, especially if they come out with good ones or have cool characters. This makes me more excited for the werewolf guy I got from the Kickstarter, Jaeger, and the Fishman. And I just want to say again, big thanks to Harbinger Studios and the team over at Savage Crucible for sending me this figure review. That's super cool. Let me know down in the comments if you'll be picking up one of these figures or if you're excited for any of the future waves. That's my cat meowing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.